Morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Good. Good. Busy. It's a busy day, but it's
Yeah,
it's
I
okay. I always think that October will be like the catch up kind of settle in a month and it just keeps going faster and faster. So yeah. How are you all doing?
not too bad. We're almost at the midterm point.
Okay. And where are you located again? Can you physically?
I'm in Milwaukee at Marquette.
Oh, Milwaukee. Yeah, perfect. Great. Yeah. Yeah, go Milwaukee. I'm a Marquette alum. I did my grad school work there. All right. We'll just let people come in. I'll get set up here for the meeting.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. So a lot of people still joining, so we'll keep giving everybody just a few minutes or another minute or so. We got a whole party here today. If you're coming in, you're welcome to add any questions, burning questions that you've been sitting on to the chat or any reflections on the learning that you did through the pre-work that we had. It helps. I'll try to address all of those throughout them or highlight them as we go through the content that we have prepared for you today. We've got Stephen Yule here, my little buddy. How are you feeling, Stephen? I hope you're doing well.
Good morning, Amy, and the rest of you. Also with the coughing stuff.
Oh,
Being in the office all day yesterday made it really bad, but getting better from that now.
I'm glad you're able to at least recoup a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're here.
Thanks. I'll just be listening in. Call on me if you need me for anything.
Yeah, feel free to add or, anything you need. All right. Well, I know that this is an we do still have some people popping on and I am great. Thank you, Contessa. I'm glad you're here. I spoke with Katie yesterday from Ascendium. I'm really excited about your program. So if you have any questions, let us know. All right, so I know it's always busy, right? So I will do my best to honor your time. I'm very excited to have everybody back together again for our cohort call. I feel like we just did this and a whole month has gone by. So we are in the vortex of the year as it gets going. So like I said, if you have any questions as they come up, throughout the session here, please feel free to add them to the chat. I will do my best to try to check those as I'm talking. Not a great multitasker sometimes, so but we will get to all the questions as we get going. All right. So without further ado. All right, so just a quick review since we have some new people, most of you have been here, so we're all coming to this learning in different levels and understanding. So just a few logistical reminders. If you would like to have your video on, certainly if you're going to say anything, it's great to see your lovely faces, kind of get to know people a little bit better that way. But also, I totally understand the nature of our work in our busy lives. And if you feel more comfortable turning your video off, I respect that. Also, if you notice it's freezing a lot, go ahead. I get it. That's fine. We are recording all of these sessions. They will be posted onto Basecamp once we're complete. So if you want to go back to any of that, there will be time for questions. My work here with you is really to serve your needs and to meet you where you are. So your questions will guide a lot of what we do and talk about. I can give you this overview. I know some of you are really experienced with AmeriCorps and some of you are coming in brand new. So we're going to try in these cohort calls to meet the needs of everyone along that spectrum of experience. Also, please feel free to write down questions if you're like me. I have paper because for some reason I can't type while I'm speaking. So please feel free to write them down, and then you can throw them in the chat box. You can send me a personal email. Don't be shy about your questions. They are usually common questions that everybody will probably have. And like we always say in AmeriCorps, it takes 7 to 8 times to hear the same thing until it gets in there. So, communication, that is the point of all of this. So to reach this, we are here to really try to meet your needs and help you as you come. Also connect you with each other. The planning grant is a really special year where you can kind of dream up these really awesome programs and then do all the work to make them happen. And you are all in that boat together. So you are great resources for one another. And then, of course, keeping intentionality at the forefront. I think planning grants, again, it's a huge gift to have a whole year with finances to design an AmeriCorps program. These are not easy programs to run or to design or to write the grants. They're highly bureaucratic. There are a lot of components. So having this year is amazing, but sometimes it's really easy that it's not at the forefront of your mind or what you're doing because many of you have other jobs and other things you are also doing. So the idea of having our monthly calls is to really just make sure that we're chipping away at the great amount of information that has to go through our minds and then also the work that needs to be done to be operational. So just a quick reminder on our process, we will have the monthly cohort calls, which we're doing now. I will speak with you one-on-one each month. But if you need to talk more, certainly by email, or if you want to have a call, that's great. Again, I'm here to help as much as possible. And then I always want to be thinking about you're doing the On3 Learn, those the pre-work, the assignments. So thinking about what are you thinking about as a result of all of that learning? These cohort calls are not I'm going to do my best not to regurgitate all the things that you're doing. I see all of you in On3 Learn. You're doing a great job. That has a lot of information. So I'm just going to highlight certain things from that to deepen the learning, but I really wanted to try to tailor it to your program and what you need. I wanted to try to introduce some breakout groups because as I mentioned, all of you are coming from a wide variety of experience in AmeriCorps, and I think you will be great resources for one another as sounding boards and just to get to know what other people are doing. It's kind of one of the most amazing things in AmeriCorps that we do so many things in so many communities, and it's nice to have time to actually get to know each other a bit. And of course, like I said, question and answer times. This is all about your questions and trying to help guide you. I know in the beginning, sometimes you don't know what you don't know, but that's okay. And all questions are good. Okay. And a few reminders on the planning grant timeline. So if you're going for the formula application, your applications aren't due until March. That sounds like it's in many years from now, but it is not. It will come very, very quickly, and to get ready. And then I also know that Serve Wisconsin's competitive RFP is open right now and everything's due on the 11th. So if you are submitting for that, that's coming up quick. If you are submitting for that, I'm more than happy to review logic models, your grant documents. You can send them my way so that you're ready to submit them on the 11th. All right. I wanted to go over some important reminders. This is really important. So I sent out emails on Basecamp, and then there was some thing that had to change. So I believe all of you are on the Serve Wisconsin Basecamp. If you are not, please do send me an email so that I can ensure that you get there, because a lot of this information we're going over is going to be on this Basecamp. I do want to highlight just a few things here. In the Serve Wisconsin AmeriCorps program Basecamp, so much information. For your planning grant specifically, in the document docs and files, you'll go to all other resources. Then you have to scroll down a bit until you get to the planning grant folder. This folder, I'm going to put everything, all of these recordings, any resources that I'm referencing will go in here. Already in here is the AmeriCorps Planning Grant Guide. That is like the program director manual, but specified for planning grants. So if you have a lot of questions on AmeriCorps specific in Wisconsin, your planning grant, you can check that out. It's kind of like it's like the Cliff Notes of CFRs or other required information. So check that out. There's the support plan. So that's going to have that learning path. It will have all the links to any of the On3 Learn courses, to the checklists. That's in the learning path. There are the actual checklists in a whole folder if you can't find them. Your grant award files, there's been a lot of questions that have come through in the last month, and a great deal of them actually can be answered by reading the grant award documents, especially Addendum 1. So do make sure, I mean, when you get that, it's really easy. You sign the document and then it's done and you put them in your folder, but they have really important information. So please do read them, especially Addendum 1. And like I said, all of the resources for our cohort calls will go into this, the PowerPoint slides, any FAQs. I'll try to link out to the CFRs when it's appropriate. And then just a Word doc that has links to these calls. There is also the Ask Training and Technical Assistance directory. That's actually a link because they keep it online now. So if you're looking for any other AmeriCorps consultants, if you're still looking, Ask sometimes has a job board. I know a number of you are looking for program directors for your potential program. Ask could be a great resource to help publicize the description that you're looking for, or the job description you're sending out. And then any documents that come that I reference in one of these calls. So the AmeriCorps language, it's like a cheat sheet on all the acronyms. And then a few startup checklists, it's a lot, so don't stress out too much when you open those. It's all the things that need to be done in order to run an operational program. So those are just samples that we pulled from around the country that people use to make sure they have all the components in place. And then, of course, the planning grant contact list that can help you connect with each other if you would like to. I think, again, you all are the best resources for one another as we go through this work. All right, so if any of you are not on Serve Wisconsin's Basecamp, please let me know, because I'll be referencing and leaning very heavily on this. Not only is there planning grant specific information, but as you can see, there is a ton of resources on here. This Serve Wisconsin, the program director, the program manual is amazing. Again, it's Cliff Notes to the terms and conditions to the CFRs. It has all the Wisconsin specific information. Highly, highly recommend you bookmark that one. Of course, there's a message board, so you can get in touch with other operational programs or each other, ask questions. There's some really clever recruitment strategies that'll come out on here, or you might see any updates from the federal agency also come through here. All right, I need water. All right, so that's Basecamp. And let me know if you're not on there. And then another question that seems to be coming up already is talking about the reporting that you're going to be doing as a planning grant. If you are an operational grant with Serve Wisconsin, you may be familiar with this timeline. Planning grant is similar with a few differences. So your periodic expense reports, your PERs, those are how you're going to draw your grant funds down from your planning grant. That is going to be done quarterly unless you have approval from Serve Wisconsin, which I'm not aware that anyone does. So right now, everyone's on this quarterly plan. We have the aggregate financial reports and the match reports. All three of those financial.
I'm pooping toilets and I can't flush it.
All three of your financial reports are going to be done on Encore. So again, all of you should be in Encore now and able to submit your budget. So that's a big thing that you can do now. Green Bay, I know your budget is ready for approval. I will be taking a look at that in the next day or two. But again, you're not going to actually be able to submit a PER until after December 31st before January 20th. That's going to be the first drawdown period for your PER. This information is all in the planning grant guide. I will also be sending more information as the due dates come up, but I know people were asking questions, so there it is for your reporting. And then the other reporting is going to be your progress reporting. When you're operational, that will also be done through Encore, but for right now, for your planning grant, we're going to be using Google Forms. I'm in the process of creating that and making sure that we're getting the information that will be helpful. It's going to be mostly anecdotal reflections on your planning grant, trying to identify any training and technical assistance needs that you have and what we can do to best support you along the process. We have a lot of touch points with our cohort calls, with our one-on-one calls. So there's probably only going to be 3 of those unless for some reason I see a Q3 need for a progress report. But right now I'm thinking we'll do a Q1, Q2, and then a final one at the very end. So again, I will be sending that out. My goal is to have that all completed for the progress reporting by our next call. So you have well in advance anything that we're going to be thinking about asking you to write up on. And again, it's really designed to provide you, to support you with the work you're doing. Okay. Are there any questions or thoughts regarding these updates, reminders, reporting, whatsoever? You can talk or put it in the chat. Right. Okay. Okay, well then we'll just dive in. So the topic for this month's learning was AmeriCorps Members and Benefits 101. So again, this is just I'm going to try to do a quick overview because we have many people who know AmeriCorps very well, and then some who are brand new. And I do want to say, even though if you know AmeriCorps well, unless you've operated an AmeriCorps program in Wisconsin, there could be additional information that will be useful for you. I'll try to pull it to Wisconsin. And I think, again, we can always learn. If you feel like, oh, I know this, you're an expert, that's wonderful. I hope you can be a teacher to our other programs as well in our breakout session in just a bit. So who members are. So it sounds easy, but a lot of times we do hear, especially in the language, in your position descriptions, in recruitment information, this doesn't happen as much as it should, but AmeriCorps members are not staff or interns or employees or volunteers. They have a very specific definition that's outlined in the federal legislation that created AmeriCorps. Again, they're not volunteers. A traditional volunteer role is not nearly as structured with a specific amount of time, hours, and focused service and position descriptions that an AmeriCorps member has. Also, you probably know at whatever level you're coming to this work, that the administrative and management requirements that you have to do for an AmeriCorps member to serve is significantly more than your traditional volunteer position. And that's a huge difference. Can't be understated, right? So AmeriCorps members are also not staff or employees, which this really can be confusing, especially in how we talk about our members and most importantly, how your sites are going to see their members at their own site. And this is where lines can get blurred, but it's really important that you start from the beginning, understanding this difference and articulating it in all of your materials and conversations with your partners. AmeriCorps members do not have the federal income tax and Social Security deducted from their living allowances. However, they can be eligible for unemployment benefits upon completing their service. But in Wisconsin state legislature, AmeriCorps members are not considered employees for the purposes of unemployment insurance coverage. So unless you are a professional core program. So members should not be listed in Wisconsin on your agency or organization's quarterly employee listing for the purposes of unemployment insurance coverage. If you do include members in your unemployment report, you could run the risk of losing an unemployment ruling and being forced to pay unemployment for a former member. So don't do that, because also grant funds cannot be used to do that. So just make sure Wisconsin law is really clear on this. So just make sure they're not listed in your reports. So you may have to share that with whomever is running that report. Again, in your program materials and verbal representation, always refer to them as AmeriCorps members, that they serve, they do not work, they have position descriptions, not job descriptions, and they cannot, and a lot of this goes to the fact that they cannot replace existing staff. Volunteers, they can't even replace volunteers. If they're coming in and doing a service that you have volunteers currently doing, they cannot do that, and they can't replace anything that current employees are doing. They need to be addressing distinct gaps in service for an identified community problem. That's all written up in your grant narrative. So for example, members can't during their term of service be called into performing an existing employee's job just because that person is sick. They have to stick to the activities outlined in your grant position description and grant documents. I know when I served in elementary school, and it was really, really common if somebody was out sick for them to try to get us to come in and do recess duty or lunch duty or bus line duty or something like that. And as an AmeriCorps member, the members themselves are going to be like, yeah, I'll help out, whatever you want me to do. But you can't do that. When you're looking at developing your program, you really, like I've said before, you want to look at your org chart and make sure that your program, there's no overlap, there's no duplication, displacement that can shut your program down, and it's no fun for anybody involved. So that's kind of why it sounds like just a language thing, but it does go further than that. Also, again, we use that specific language, calling them AmeriCorps members at their service site, because I know what, again, when I served, I was in California with a program called CalServes, and I would just say I worked at CalServes, or I was a CalServes member. And so, but we would very, very rarely call ourselves an AmeriCorps program. And this was a million years ago. But it's really, really important that you do set the tone now that your members are AmeriCorps members, with especially your host sites, because one, that helps us just connect with the larger national service network and that brand identification to ensure the security of AmeriCorps as we move forward, and so that people see the impact of AmeriCorps. It's amazing. You'll be talking to people about it at AmeriCorps, and they have no idea what it is. They've never heard that word before in their life, but a lot of people have heard of what the Peace Corps is. And there's so many more AmeriCorps members out there serving than there are Peace Corps members. So you can really help that understanding in our communities by adhering to the language we use for AmeriCorps. All right, so eligibility, we're going to later on have a further dive into eligibility, but just a few things. There are 4 main areas of eligibility: age, citizenship, social security, and high school diploma. There is a tutoring eligibility requirement as outlined in the CFRs, but I think I'll address that if you qualify for that, because most of you do not. So to dive in further of the age requirement, individuals do have to be 17 years of age or older. If they're 17, then parental consent is needed to serve. The age is verified with a government issued identification or birth certificate. The exception is if a member is out of school and enrolled in a full-time year-round youth corps program, or if they're a full-time summer program as identified in the National Community Service Act, then they have to be between the ages of 16 and 25. Again, that's something that we can talk more specifically to your individual programs. Citizenship, they do have to be a United States citizen, US law national or lawful permanent resident. So that's now verified through the enrollment process, which we will go through in more detail later. The social security card, they have to have a signed social security card, which if they qualify for the citizenship requirement, they will have a social security card. The next area is a high school diploma or GED certification. Individuals, they have to have a high school diploma or GED, or they must sign a document agreeing to obtain a high school diploma or GED before utilizing their education award. For this area of eligibility, the individual just needs to complete their portion of the enrollment form in which they certify their high school status. Such certification fulfills the program's verification requirement to obtain and maintain documentation for this. If the member is incapable of attaining a high school diploma or its equivalent, the program would retain a copy of the supporting evaluation. But again, we'll get into a little more detail of that as we go. And then everyone's favorite topic, which is an eligibility topic. The background checks, lovingly called NSCHCs, National Service Criminal History Checks. There's been progress. I mean, we're moving to that one vendor with TruScreen. If you're an existing program in Wisconsin, you know it has to be done through TruScreen, and FieldPrint's going away in November. Everything will be run through TruScreen. This is an eligibility requirement for your program that you need to know. And I got to tell you, this is if as a new program, you really want to do this well. Okay, this area can be costly, it can be painful, but if you set up the processes well in advance, I know they have to be adjudicated. All the checks have to be adjudicated at least one day prior to service or work, but you're going to want to do this much more than one day before someone starts. Okay, it takes time. There's quirks to it, so this is an area that you really want to pay attention to. And this will be applicable for all Wisconsin AmeriCorps program members and staff funded either partially or wholly by the federal funds or shown as match, either cash or in kind, on your AmeriCorps grant budget. The actual criteria, it's not that huge, really. They have to consent. They can't lie about their background check. They cannot be registered on the National Sex Offender Registry. And they cannot have committed murder as defined in the law. So those are the only 4 eligibility requirements when it comes to the National Service Criminal History Checks. However, we always say you can add your own layers. And certainly you may want to, if you're working with children, I know a lot of programs will add other layers to that. But per AmeriCorps, these are the eligibility requirements when it comes to the background checks. We'll go into this later because you got a lot on your plate right now, but please just have this a note in your head. If you do nothing else absolutely perfectly well, this is one to really put in your energy to make sure it's done well. Okay, so programmatic considerations. So with the lens of who the AmeriCorps members are, you'll need to think through a number of the programmatic considerations as you develop your theory of change, your logic model, and your grant. I'm not going to read over all of these questions. I am going to post this document in Basecamp at the end of these, at the end of this call. But for now, you really want to be considering with the lens of AmeriCorps and who they can be, who members can be, and what they have to, what criteria they have to meet. How can those members be used to address the problems or gaps you see in your community? You'll want to have a solid understanding of who they are and can be as you think about in more detail what you want them to do, where they will be, and if all of those things are allowable. When you're thinking through all the great things that your members are going to do, you have to start thinking about the logistics, or in logic model terms, the inputs needed to accomplish all of the great activities you're thinking about. And as we discussed on our last call, AmeriCorps is like learning a new language. So a few terms that you want to kind of make sure you understand solidly is a slot type. So it's really easy. One slot is just one AmeriCorps member. It's just one person. Now the member service year, not quite as straightforward. It's an MSY, one MSY is equivalent to one full-time member. On your screen, you see the value, the service term, what it's called, full-time members. They equal one MSY and they have to serve a minimum of 1,700 hours. Now, looking at this chart, you too may have questions why the quarter-time member is not a quarter of a full-time member. I have no answers for you there. I'm sorry. But you do want to keep in mind that that equation is not exact. That will come up later when you're doing member management if you have to move things around. For now, you really are thinking about how many people do you want in your program? How many hours do they need to serve to do what you want to do? And then you want to calculate your MSY value. That MSY value is super important, but it's going to help you frame how you're going to achieve the goals that you want and how many people you need. The tool on your screen, again, I will be posting it. You probably saw it as a resource in the On3Learn courses. This was made by Jennifer Cohort, who is an Excel guru. She'll talk to you a lot about Excel if you want. It's very fun. But this tool is the benchmark calculator, and a tool that she used with her program and that we now use with every person that we work with. Especially as new programs, you kind of, sometimes they arbitrarily make decisions about member terms and the number of hours and how many weeks they're going to serve. So for example, a lot of times a program will think they have full-time members, so that those members will just serve 12 months at 40 hours a week. But if you actually calculate that out, it's going to be way over their required 1,700 hours. So this tool just assists programs in having a clearer picture of how many hours a week and month their members must complete to meet that service hour requirement for their slot type. It also helps establish the best organization of your service term. She has got a number of, like the gray cells are prior to the program start, black cells are weekends, and then you can change colors of things for holidays and whatnot. So it's a fully workable Excel document. I highly recommend you use it. I know I also talk to new programs that you see the full year here, but when you're looking at designing your program, you probably aren't going to have members, and I don't even recommend it usually to have members serve a full 12 months, because again, the administrative requirements are a lot. And I think quality should always be at the heart of what you're doing, as opposed to necessarily quantity. And you have humans doing this work, and it's hard work, and it's a lot of work. So that a lot of us are with schools, and if you are, that's wonderful. It lines up great to do it through the school year. Allow that summer month or two to exit your members, to really do a great Life After AmeriCorps training, send-off, reflection period with your members, reset as a program director, all that paperwork for exiting your members, and then getting them set up for the new cohort. It also allows some time for dedicated recruitment efforts, also just to breathe for a second, for a minute, and then to reflect and really implement quality adaptations for your program looking forward in the new year. So when you're filling out the benchmark calculator, really take into consideration, and just know there's no brownie points or bonus points for going 12 months. Like there's just not. There are, however, for running a really quality program that is very compliant. And I think allowing yourself time to do the administrative work will allow you time, or the ability to be very compliant. Okay, ugh. It's a lot of talking. Any questions, thoughts, concerns? Okay, we're gonna keep going. Okay, as I mentioned, so once you know kind of an idea of what slot types you want your members to be in, you can calculate about what your MSY value is going to be. And then you're going to be able to kind of think through what is the maximum cost per MSY that you can request from AmeriCorps, and how that will work with your projected program expenses. this year, the cost per MSY, this is $25,000 for cost reimbursement programs. So Wisconsin had it that it was 25,200, and Stephen, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, if you're a non-EAP formula subgrant. So what you would do to calculate your maximum that you can request from AmeriCorps is you take your MSY value, you multiply it by the maximum cost per MSY, and that'll tell you what funds you can get from AmeriCorps to operate your program. So that's really important, I think, as you're like thinking through your budget. Again, you can kind of play that balance of looking at how many members you need to do the activities in your program, how much money you will have for that. I always tell people there's no way you're going to be able to request from AmeriCorps every penny you need to run your program, even in match. It's going to be more. So don't worry if that's the case. That's very, very normal. So again, you'll want to calculate your maximum cost per MSY. So if you had 10 half-time members, you have 10 or 5 MSY, you would take 5 times that maximum cost per MSY, which will use 2,500, giving you 125,000 that you can request from CNCS, which is AmeriCorps pre-branding, but they still have that, I believe, on the budget when you submit it. So CNCS, don't be confused, that's actually just AmeriCorps, the federal agency, before they changed their name. So this is important. And while it is completely not related, the maximum cost per MSY is not related to your member living allowance. If you are planning on providing a living allowance to your members, you do have to think about your cost per MSY. Member living allowances are one of the benefits that we can give to our AmeriCorps members. It's not the only one, but it's one that a lot of people are thinking through. So AmeriCorps they do put out this table that you see on your screen that lists a minimum total living allowance and a maximum total living allowance. The only slot type that has a minimum requirement is the full-time slot. They did just raise that number, but they did not raise the maximum cost per MSY. So as you can probably do really quick math, you will see you're not gonna get even all of your living allowance really from, I mean, if you want to give them the max, that's amazing. And your AmeriCorps members will love you for it, but you're gonna have to find money from other places to do so, even with the minimum total. So again, it's not related, but you want to look at these two things in tandem. So if you a note about the living allowance, we call it a stipend. It is not a payment. It cannot be treated like an hourly payment. Don't do that. That's a very bad idea. It has to be given out in like a set amount of time. We'll get into that when we do budgets. Not even going to go there right now. So again, the only slot type that has a minimum total living allowance is the full-time slot. Now, a lot of programs will ask, I've been asked many times, what would it be? What would the minimum term be for the other slot types? So that's what you see in blue here. It's the exact same as the last time, except for the blue one is just calculated. I find the easiest method is to take the percentage of hours when compared to a full-time position. So like the 3/4 time position is 1,200 hours. And so I divided that by the 1,700 hours, which is about 71%. And we use that percentage with the minimum full-time living allowance, which will equal about that 14,200. So again, there's no required minimums, but if you just wanted an idea of what the other programs are doing, this is kind of it. Again, you're not required for anything less than full-time. You're going to want to look at this, how this plays in with your what you can request from AmeriCorps, what you're providing as match, and then, of course, the other benefits you can be offering your members. Again, so I just put these tables side by side so you can kind of see visually that your living allowances may or may not all come from what you're requesting from AmeriCorps. This is the gist. Okay. And as you actually develop your budget, I'm happy to look over that and then brainstorm other ways to work through this. There are other benefits. I think, I was an AmeriCorps member, you don't get much from the living allowance. Again, it's a stipend. The idea, it's kind of by design too. But I want to sell the living allowance as the best benefit of your AmeriCorps service that you're offering. While it's a wonderful help, it's just not the only thing. Health insurance, which is required for full-time members, not otherwise covered by health insurance. And that can be provided to, you can provide it to less than full-time members that are serving in a full-time capacity. So that'll happen a lot when like summer programs, we'll see members serving in a full-time capacity. There's also the Education Award, which I think is huge. I mean, it keeps rising. It's an amazing opportunity for folks. They can pay off their education, they can pay off any student loans that may have been deferred during their service. A lot of institutions now are matching that Education Award. So that's a really big sell. Learn Through Learn has a whole course on the Education Award, which I know some of you took. And then there's also childcare that's available to full-time and less than full-time members who are serving at least 32 hours a week if they meet their criteria. There's, like I mentioned, loan forbearance for qualified student loans while an AmeriCorps member is serving. And then there's interest accrual payment upon member successful completion. One note on the Education Award that's really neat here in Wisconsin is they were able to get, it is now tax exempt from state Wisconsin taxes, which is really cool. Yeah, I know. We're really like, and all the states are working to get that across the board. It would be wonderful if we could get the federal. So, but that's happening all the time. We're trying, but we got it in Wisconsin. Because that really surprises members too. So when you're talking about your Ed Award, do give them a heads up about the federal in Wisconsin component of being taxed, because it's a like over, it's a significant sum of money that will be taxed. So, but it's great. And then I know a lot of programs do so much. Let's see. Stephen, thanks. Stephen says, to help with recruitment of AmeriCorps members, several of the Serve Wisconsin programs have been increasing their living allowance amounts from the minimum for full-time slots and increasing from what they previously paid for smaller size slots. So definitely talk to the other programs. If you're new, see how they're doing it. You'll be connected with other people who are doing maybe similar things that you are. Some of us are connected with universities, I know. Universities can offer a whole range of benefits too. You can be talking about to different professors, matching anything. I know there was just the updated gift card policy that was put out by AmeriCorps. So a lot of people will get like gas cards. You do have to, there's some rules on that that I'll put on Basecamp so you can see that. But you can get really creative. I know coffee shops, some local coffee shops will give like an AmeriCorps member discount card, which is kind of cool that you can hand out. So there's a lot of little benefits that you can get really creative on doing. And then of course, just the amazing experience being a member. Okay. Yes. Okay. Questions, thoughts, anything on this now? It's like AmeriCorps shotgun information. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is to try to put us into some, and we have, oh, it's gonna be quick. But this is the end of the meeting, so we'll have about 5 minutes, but I'd like to put you into just breakout groups. And then you could kind of introduce yourself, ask any questions from what we've been talking about. When I put you into your groups here, it's gonna take me a minute to multitask. But I'd like you to maybe, I'm going to try to put very new people with some experienced people so you can talk about this information from your perspectives, share any tips or tools, or even just get to know each other a little bit. Okay, if there's any questions, you can put it in here. I'm going to work on putting you into great breakout rooms because I wasn't sure who all would be here. So we'll do it that way. Okay. Mhm. Okay, you ready? Good luck. You're stuck with me, Stephen.
That's fine. Here you go.
How's it going?
Eh.
That good?
You're recording, so I have to leave it.
Yeah. I hope this is going well. I try to balance because I know we have some who really know AmeriCorps, some who don't, but
That's a lot of stuff.
yeah. Well, afterwards, I'm always open to feedback.
I don't do the Zoom administrative things. If you're recording, can you stop? Like, could you stop recording now? Put it stay there and then pick up start it again?
Oh,
Not sleep.
that's a good question. I'm actually not sure. I can see. Oh. All right. All right, they're coming back. Well, that does explain a few things. I should start popping back in here soon. I've had either really the breakout rooms, I don't know, have you done them in Zoom a lot? It either works
No,
beautifully or it gets very, very glitchy. So I always am a little nervous in this returning part. What happens? Yay! Everybody came back. I think everyone's back. Okay. Breakout rooms either work really, really well or I don't, something goes wrong. Well, welcome back. So I know that was really fast. It's like 7 minutes of time, which is probably not enough time to do much. But I hope you were able to at least meet someone who is new, make a new contact, and just please, I think especially when you look at like myself, I am the planning grants consultant. I am not I work with Serve Wisconsin. And there's questions you definitely want to bring your program officer on board with, and myself. But also there might be times you want to talk to your peers and they're great resources. So at bare minimum, I hope you got to meet new people. If there are any questions though, that you would love to ask right now, you can either unmute yourself or throw it in the chat box. I'd love to hear from you in our few minutes that we have left of our meeting time. You guys are
I had
easy.
one question for
Yeah.
clarification.
Mhm.
So the distinction for full-time hours, does Wisconsin, like does the state of Wisconsin or AmeriCorps provide guidance on what that full-time weekly hours requirement is?
And Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's serving at least 32 hours a week. Less than full-time members serving at least 32 hours a week.
Yeah, that seems to be like the floor of it. Is there a like if folks are 36 hours, are they considered full-time for like
Yeah.
are they then required to have healthcare, for instance?
Oh, that's a good, if they are required. Because I know. So it says it can be provided to members, and Stephen, to jump in here, but it can be, if you have to provide it, required for full-time members who are not otherwise covered. But that's in that full-time slot type. But if you have a member who's serving in a full-time capacity, they consider full-time capacity to be greater than 32 hours a week, but it's only required for people in the full-time slot type. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I'm saying from how I'm reading it, again, Stephen, I'm glad you're here. It's not required for anything less than full-time.
Yeah, that's correct. If they are serving a less than full-time slot, but in a full-time capacity, you can provide health insurance, but you're not required to.
Understood. Thanks for the clarification there.
Yeah, it's a great question. I always joke, you'll read the more you get to know the CFRs or anything law, there's a lot of should. Can be maddening. Scott, did you have a question?
No, I was coughing, sorry.
Oh, okay. Any other thoughts? Okay. So we'll look at what's coming up down the line. Our next cohort call is on the 13th of November. We'll be digging into program design, logic model, and performance measures. And I think we start getting, this is great beginning information. We're going to start getting into some more complicated topics, and it's certainly more specified to your program. There's a lot to cover here in the coming month. So any questions that come up, and again, if you are making your logic model or any part of your program design and you want me to take a look at it, please just send it over to me. I always say, if you feel like you're spinning your wheels or you're overthinking something, get another pair of eyes on it. It can help tremendously and save you a bunch of time. And always any questions that come up along the way, let me know. Certainly, if you are in the group that may be submitting your grant in the next 2 days, please reach out to me. I'm happy to help review anything that's coming up. Okay. And then, of course, I'll be talking to all of you, except Ascendium, either later today or tomorrow, which I'm very excited about. Steven, you want to add anything from Serve Wisconsin?
No, nothing to add.
Okay. All right. Well, you guys get 5 minutes of your life back. Congratulations. All right. Thank you all for all you're doing, all your hard work. Keep breathing. You got this.